parts to it. Part 1, set up multiple VLANs and don't use any trunking, so you can see the disadvantages of that. Part 2, setting up multiple VLANs while using trunking and a router. And then part 3, set up trunking and use a layer 3 switch to perform the routing. So there's 3 parts. All 3 should be their own separate projects saved and submitted, along with the completed document for the lab. So to get started, right, we make sure that our GNS3 VM's up and running, which it is. I'm going to get that out of the way. And it's connected, so I'm verifying that my connection's there. Next, I'm going to grab a couple switches. And in this case, I'll just pull out 3. And for the purposes of this, I'm going to make them all the same, just for the ease of it. You will get some bonus points if you make one of the switches different, if you make it a Juniper or a whatever different switch and configure that, something other than what we went over in class. Now, once these are pulled out, I'm also going to start to interconnect them. Well, I should probably configure my VLANs first. So let's do that. For the purposes of configuring these, I'm going to make all 3 of them exactly the same. So just for the sake of speed and hopefully going a little faster than I could in class. So if I was doing this on a real iOS, the first thing I'd do is enable. And I'm going to put a little thing here, that little note. Switch 1, 2, 3, no trunks. So that's a good place to start. So we're going to enable, which in the case of IOU, it's not that big a deal. We're going to go into configuration terminal, and once we're in configuration terminal, we're going to look at configuring multiple interfaces at the same time. So interface range E00 through in this case we'll make it half. So it's going to be interface 00 through 3. And Ethernet 1, 0 through 3. I'm going to do both sets of interfaces at the same time. At this point, we can set the ports out of dynamic trunking protocol, which all Cisco ports are by default set to dynamic trunking protocol. They will try to go out and determine if trunks are available. However, today this is considered insecure, so we're going to turn it off by default. So we're going to say switch port mode access, and then we're going to, man, I'm having a hard time typing tonight. We're going to set the access VLAN 100 and at this point, I should be able to take this and actually copy it and paste it in. So, and before I set the range, and I want to make the second range E20 through 3 and E30 through 3 for this example. Again, you're gonna have to synthesize this and figure out what the commands do, and right. So you're setting the mode of the port to access, and then you're setting the command to set a specific VLAN here. Before I do any of this, I'm going to go back up to the top here, and I'm going to create my VLANs. VLAN 100. Name, let's call it the IT VLAN. VLAN 200. Name HR. That should be fine. So that'll set up my VLANs and give them names. This will select the port ranges that I want to associate with the VLANs, and then set up those on each of the routers. So, on each of the switches, excuse me. So, let's see how this works. We're going to turn these all on, and they boot really quick. So, as I go into IOU 1, and again, I'm already in. I'm going to take a look at my configuration that I have here. Now notice, if I start a line with exclamation point, it's just a comment, right? And so I'm going to go back to my text. I'm going to grab the whole thing. I'm going to copy it. And to paste this in, it should be Alt-V, or right-click in here. This one isn't Alt-V. It's right-click for putty. And it'll bring all this in and do it all at once. I'm going to type exit a couple times, and I'm going to say everything is configured by the console. Show VLANs. Show VLAN. So in this case, I see that I have IT1 or a VLAN 100 with the correct ports and VLAN 200. You'll have to configure more VLANs and figure out your port settings, but that gives you an idea how to get started with that. Now, I'm going to minimize this one, and I'm going to set them all these up for the example exactly the same. So this guy's up. I'm going to go back to my IOU2's up. I'm going to go back to my my configuration in Notepad, and important, after you get to the last line, make sure you hit enter, because the last line, when it's pasted, does not have a carriage return after it. So should be fine. Exit a couple times, and again, you have the VLAN configuration here at the top, right? We'll minimize this. Also, you should name these in a way that you'll know where they're at, so they make sense. I'm just leaving them 1, 2, and 3. Just trying to go fast. Here's IOU3. There's the configuration. Exit. Exit. Show VLAN. Again, there's your VLANs across your Ethernet ports. Pretty basic. So now let's do some wiring. Let's make ETH0 and 0, 1 here to 0 are all going to be VLAN 1, And then over here, we'll have to rewire this to VLAN 2. VLAN 2 will go here to VLAN 2. And VLAN 2 here is going to have to go to VLAN 2. So this is the inefficiency. It's taking 2 links to each of the hosts, each of the switches, to carry each VLAN's data separately. Not exactly what I'd be going for in a normal scenario, but that's part of this lab is showing you the inefficiencies of this. I'm going to grab a couple, I'll just use Ubuntu here. Clients. For testing purposes. Now, I'm going to connect all the ones across the top here to VLAN. Actually, I'll take the ones across the bottom here and connect them to VLAN 100, and the ones across the top to VLAN 200, just to keep them in number order for simplicity's sake. So that would be, now, because I'm pretty sure of the way this is going to go, if I right click on this and go to configure, right, I can edit the network configuration here and make it so that whenever this comes back up, I could set it at the command line, or I can just remove these pounds and say, okay, I'm going to make this static interface stay. So I'm going to say, and for the sake of setting this up, I'm going to configure this octet of the address. I'm going to make them 192.168. For the purposes of your lab, you're going to have to subnet them appropriately into different subnets. So let's say that this is, let's change it back. So let's say this is 1.0, and I only have 2 VLANs, so I'd have to divide this, which was default class C, and if I want to subnet it and make this the first available subnet, I'd have to change my network mask. Yours is going to be different. Again, you're going to have to think a little bit. The gateway is going to be I'm going to make it that 127 for now. It doesn't exist yet. I'll explain why that is in a second. So the address here, actually I'm going to make it 10, and I'm going to make the gateway 1. There's a couple different ways that people go about assigning gateways. It all comes down to the convention that you're using on your network. A lot of people will make the gateways and the statically assigned addresses the lowest numbers on the subnet, and some people will make them the highest. It just depends on what kind of configuration you want to get to. So I am going to still keep the line that sets up the name server turned off. So now, if I save this, actually I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to copy these couple lines out because I made a couple minor changes here. But I'm going to save this, hit OK. I'm going to go to Ubuntu 2, edit the startup, grab those lines, paste them in. This guy's going to be 11. The rest of them should be good. Hit save, hit OK, go to Ubuntu 3, edit this configuration again. This guy's going to be 12. So save it, save it. I'm going to select all three, right click and start them. So all three of those things fire up. Now, what should I see here? Let's go back and do some wiring. Ethernet 0 of that to the first VLAN. Again, we're staying in the first VLAN. And staying in the first VLAN. Those should all now be booted. If I check them with ifconfig, they have interesting. Well, maybe not. I'm not seeing the configuration. I wonder if I missed something here. Oh, I have to uncomment these two lines here. Static config for static config for ETH0. That is auto ETH0. My face. Okay. The auto ETH0 should be there to turn it on, I believe. So let's try this again. Start this one up. It boots very fast. There it is. So I'll have to do that for the other two and power cycle them. Is just take off this auto ETH0 pound. Stop that one. Start it again. And again, the reason for that is I'm putting that in because I want this to be permanent. So if I go back to any of these, Ubuntu 1, Ubuntu 2, right? Ubuntu 3, all of them are seeing each other. Start the ping, so I'm pinging from 3 to 1. At the same time, I can ping from 1 to 2. Now, what's going to happen here? If, let's bring this down to a window so I can see some things. Right. So here I have Ubuntu 1 pinging Ubuntu 2. Oh, there they are. So there you go. There's your interface labels. This is still pinging in the background. I never shut it off. So again, this is Ubuntu 3 pinging through to Ubuntu 1. If I remove this top link and delete it. This ping process just goes right along with its business because none of the VLAN 100 data is traveling on that, which is really interesting to me. It simulates exactly how you would think. However, if I take and select the second link, which is VLAN 100, and I delete that, these pings stop. And now it's no longer pinging. Neither of the pings that I've set up should be currently going. And if I stop this, Control C to stop, it'll tell you that 212 were received, and here 236 were transmitted, and 213 were received. So after 213 successful, I disconnected the wire, and it worked. Now, so what's that prove? It's just showing the way that the network's being set up here in this case. And lets us do a little experimentation. So, a couple things here going up top. If I go to configure and paste this back in, now this IP address here has to be much different because of my subnet mask. So 128 actually becomes the network ID. 129 be the first available. So I'm going to start assigning these at 139 to give myself a couple in there. And I'm going to say 129 is my default gateway. So again, with 128 being the network ID. And make sure I remove this off of auto so that I can save that. Okay. We're going to do the same thing here. Edit the config. Paste it in. 139, 140. Oh, not in the net mask. 140. The gateway is going to be 129. So you have to plan out your subnets to make it work for the lab. Once you have your subnets planned, it should start in a classful setup, and then based on the lab parameters, you're going to subnet, and then you're going to apply the subnets to the VLANs. That's where I want you to be. Should I say that again? I want you to subnet according to the lab parameters. Then I want you to create the correct number of VLANs for each subnet. Then apply the subnets to the VLANs. Doesn't seem like it should be that bad. So I'll save this one, and then I'll finally come over here and get this guy. 141 net mask. 129's the gateway. Save. Now, no matter where, I can plug any of these guys in. Make sure they're on VLAN 2. Now, you're going to have more VLANs in this, obviously. So, plan ahead. And start all those up. All of them turn green. Now, what I shouldn't have yet is if I go back to one of my known working cables here, or consoles, I'm connected back up. It's working great. If I now ping 139, I should get no response. Again, different VLANs. Pretty basic. The only way I can get that, again, it's sent 4 packets transmitted, 3+ errors. It's not going to receive data because they're on separate VLANs. So, last part, destination host unreachable. Perfect. That's what we want. It doesn't know how to get there because the router's not set up. It's not able to find the router. So the last part here of this setup is going to be configuring a router. So, and the one that I have installed here is just my IOU router. Maybe I'll look at throwing in a different one here and say I'm going to use my Cisco 7200 so I can integrate some Dynips in with this. And I'm going to create a new version. That is, I will pull up my images. And my router version is for the 7200 is 15.2-4. 15.2-4 M11. Perfect. So I have this guy in there. We're going to import him and import him in. And there, anyone who's missed that process, you now have it on film a little bit. So I now should have under available, or under installed, excuse me, I should have my 7200, which will start up over here. And when I look at my slots, this guy's coming with one fast Ethernet adapter, which for the purposes of this, you're going to need multiple. You're going to need to change this configuration or however you're going about getting, because we're not trunking anything yet. So we need enough adapters for, in this example, 2 VLANs. When you do yours, you're going to need 4 VLANs worth of stuff. So if I was doing yours, I'd put, and the option is 1 fast Ethernet adapter, 2 fast Ethernet adapters, or a gig adapter. You could put 1 gig adapter in 4 slots. You could put 2 fast Ethernet adapters here, and 2 fast Ethernet adapters here. Should be fine. Invalid name. Let's see. Huh. I'll just change this to R1, see if it likes that name better. Yeah, now it doesn't complain. Again, I'd make my names more meaningful. That'll be better for everybody. Now what I should be able to do, hopefully, and again, I'm not even going to use both of these. I'm only going to use 2 because I only have 2 VLANs. For you, you're going to need more of them, so I wanted to show you how to add different options to the card slots. Right? So now, let's fire up this router and go into the console. The Dynips images are considerably slower when they boot. and will probably run a little bit more accurately in terms of emulating what you'd see on a real router. In terms of speed, the IOU ones seem to be really fast. So because I'm only going to do this on one device, I'm not going to use Notepad++. Or, you know what? I'll put it on Notepad++, just because, in case something would happen, right? Can't hurt anything. So, again, enable the router. Get to executive privilege mode. Enable conf T. Mine's auto completing T to trunks. I don't know why it's doing that. Configure terminal. At this point, we're going to configure the interfaces. So we will say, before I run this, I am just going to show IP interface brief so I can see what my Ethernet interfaces are named. Make sure I get it right. I'm only going to use 2. You'll need multiple. So I'm going to say interface fast Ethernet 00 should work. IP address. And now I need to set this up kind of corresponding to how I set up my clients already. So it's going to be 192.168.1.1 would be VLAN 100. 255, 255, 255, 0. Now remember, a big point here, on Cisco devices especially, all switches will start by default with their interfaces enabled. All routers will start with their interfaces disabled. So, no shutdown, turn that off. And then I'm not thinking of anything else I really need there. So I think we'll be okay. So I'm going to take this and copy it and really just tweak it here and say that now this is going to be .129. Oh, I caught it. My mask was wrong on both. Good idea is to write the stuff down. I used to do it like this all the time and then got out of the habit. So let's see, router config. Let's say you can leave that in there. And this is going to be interface 01. No shutdown. We can take this out. I think that'll work as a very, very primitive configuration here. So no errors. Now, you see the two interfaces come up, processing the no shut, which is good. So let's see what happens here. So now we're going to make a connection here. We're going to say we're going to connect fast Ethernet 00, and that has to go to VLAN 1. I'm going to put on the last adapter of VLAN 1 here. Okay, and then I have to connect 0, 1, and it's going to connect back in here. I'm going to put on the last adapter of VLAN 2. I don't really care how you do it. When that makes connection, right, it should come up. Now, to verify that the router is working, first thing we should do is say show route. It won't run in configuration mode, so let's say show IP route. I'm still in configuration mode. So now, because these connections are directly connected, it's going to come up and mark them as C, which are connected, and L, which are local. That should tell you these are directly connected to the router, and it's seeing 192.168.1.1, right, as directly connected, and this network 192.168.1.0/25 is directly connected, and it's going to route those to the other directly connected networks. So these are already in the routing table. So what does that mean now? Now that I have that done, and that I have my client's already set pointing to the router, right? So here should be route print or route, maybe it's just route on this version. So because I have my default gateway already set to that, pointed to that router as a default gateway, I should be able to say ping and ping to the other VLAN. Now the other VLAN won't get broadcast traffic, but it'll now route between the two. So we've separated our broadcast domains and then routed them back into each other. We've routed them back together. So I should be able to say 192.168.1.139, and now it's working. Notice that there is a slightly higher delay. Well, the time is a little bit higher than, say, pinging.11. Slightly. Why is it higher? Well, the router has to process the data, which makes sense. Staying in the same subnet will always move the data faster, right? It never decapsulates the frame, just reads the MAC addresses, sends it along its way. Here, when we get across to the other subnet, you can see that the time is significantly higher. The router has to decapsulate the frame, read the IP addresses, rebuild the frame back, re-encapsulate the packet into the frame, and forward it out the other port. So this is slightly slower, which it would be in real life. That's pretty cool. So this would be one of the setups, right? No trunks. Go through and verify that you can ping to everybody. So if I was doing this, I go over here then to Ubuntu 5 and say, okay, I want to ping 192.168.1.139. That should be easy. That's in my same subnet. Cool. It works, right? And then at the same time, I want to say ping 12, not 112. Ping 1.12, which puts it in the other subnet. So you'll see that it's routing together, right? So that's cool. That's the first part. Now, when you're all done, you should make sure that everything is saved. So here, the Ubuntu is set up, the clients are set up with the configuration, right? So these are being set up and set up by editing here. The router, while you're in there, WR will take your running config and write it to the startup config. Or you can type in copy run start. Oh, if I spell it right. Copy run start. Startup config. Right? It should do the same thing. Now, so I'm going to exit that window. Here's IOU3. Again, WR should get you where you want to be. You can exit that out. IOU1. WR should do it. Got a little bit of a not full duplex, so one of these is not running in full duplex. Wow. We'll dig into that another lab. WR should write. And be done. So now this is all saved here, right? When I'm all done with this, I make sure it's all saved. You need a copy of this. This is one of your submissions. Now, but you have to do more than this. You have to go in and do more than this. This is an example with 2 VLANs. You have to do, I believe, 4. And connect them all together. Multiple trunks. Set it all up. It'd be a huge pain. So, what's next for us? Well, we'll talk about that in the next video. Thank you.